Sabrin, yeah. Okay, everyone, we might make a start in about 1 minute, so if you can take your seats, that'd be great. Thanks. Yeah? Like. Okay, good morning, everybody. Okay, everyone, we might make a start now, if that's okay. Thank you. Sorry to break up all the conversation, but a great sign of what is ahead, that everyone's chatting so much already. So a big welcome to everybody who is here in the room, and we've also got a similar number of people actually joining us online through a live stream today as well, so welcome to everybody. My name is Kirstan Corben. I'm an Executive Manager of Programs Group at Vic Health, and I'd like to kick off with the acknowledgement of country. The Wurundjeri and the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation pay respects to elders past and present. And when I think about doing the acknowledgement of country in an event that connects to sport, for me straight away I think about the major contribution Aboriginal people have made to sport in Australia and in Victoria as well. So thank you for being here today for our Doing Sport Differently session. Just to give you an indication of what you're in store for today, we basically have an expectation today that our job is to share with all of you in the room a lot of the things that we've learned over the last 5 or 6 years around our investments in sport. We frame this as doing sport differently because we recognise there is a need or an opportunity for sport to evolve and meet the needs of people who aren't currently physically active. We've come up with 6 principles around doing sport differently that we will share with you today, and hopefully you'll be able to walk away with a much stronger understanding of those, and certainly to be able to have some idea today, or even a personal commitment about things that you might be able to do in the short term or the medium term in your organisations to help shift your sports to better meet those needs of the population. What I'd like to do, I guess, is ask you today to have your phones out and be active on your phones. It's the opposite of what we often get told in terms of, but keep them silent, but get them out and make sure you're using them. We'll think it's a compliment if you're active on your phones. If you can jump online and go to slido.com, we'll be using that technology today to ensure there is interaction from all the people who are attending today in the room and also those who are online. So slido.com is the site that you need to go to. Once you get in there, it'll ask you for an event code. Creatively, we've called it DSD for doing sport differently, so you won't forget that. So you enter that address, that code, and then you'll be able to engage in our session today. So we'll be asking you for questions and interactions, so pose those questions. You've also got the opportunity to like other people's questions. So I'll be able to watch those on my phone, and Alex will help me as well. Keep an eye on those. We will get to a panel discussion today, and that'll be an opportunity for us to have a look at the types of things people are wanting to know more about and throw some of those questions to our panellists. So it'd be great if you can participate in that. Thank you. I'll just give us a couple of slides first of all, a little bit of context from Vic Health's point of view that have led us to get here today. Not surprising to so many of you, I know, is that Vic Health has a long history in sport. It's pretty much part of our DNA for a bit over 30 years. Our origins around buying out some of the unhealthy sponsorship, particularly tobacco sponsorship that existed in sport and art a bit over 30 years ago. Our work has evolved over those years. We've had a major focus on inclusion, gender equality in more recent times, and throughout that whole period, certainly around participation. We want more people to be physically active and sport being a major vehicle for that. We do know that life is always changing. We see life today as being more busy than it's ever been. People are generally less active than they've ever been, probably less healthy as well. So there are a lot of concerning trends about life today. The way we've engaged in sport has changed over time as well. So today's needs are a little bit less around traditional competitive sport than what they might have been in past times. So we see it as really, really important that sport continues to evolve and change and develop so that it can best meet the needs of our population today and into the future. Sport for us as an organisation is a major opportunity to drive health advancements of the state, not just physically but also mentally and socially. So when we think about physical activity, we want to understand who is physically active, what does it mean to be physically active, what are the right levels of physical activity. What we've decided as an organisation, we need to engage those people who are less active. So if you look at those green icons there, we see people who are active 5, 6 or 7 days a week. That is fantastic. We want to keep those people in that group, but us working to get somebody from 5 days to 6 days is not going to achieve much in terms of health gains for the state. We need to find those people who are active less often. So it could be 0 or one day a week, or it could be 2, 3, 4 days a week. That's the population group Vic Health has decided to focus on, and we need to shift those people upwards. It doesn't mean we're going to get someone who's 0 days a week up to 7 days a week, but if we shift everyone a little bit up on that particular scale, we'll know we'll get some advancements in health. So if we think about that less active population, which is really the red and the orange groups there, that makes up about 70% of Victorians. So most people are less active, and that is not news to people in this room, I know. There are various reasons why those people may be less active. They're not an homogenous group. There is not one single thing that we can put our finger on and go, that is the reason. But what we do know, I guess, is that sometimes those people who are less active today may have never been active, not had any experiences before. So for them to actually change will be a really big deal. Some of those people may have been previously active, may have had some great experiences and have just stopped for whatever reason, or may have had some terrible experiences when they've tried to do that in the past. So when we're thinking about evolving sport and helping sport to better meet those needs, we need to understand those different perspectives that less active population will actually have. Thinking about sport and the spectrum, from active living or active recreation right through to traditional sport and elite sport, we're really focusing at Vic Health on that middle section there that we're terming social sport. Certainly we think there is a role for every one of these circles here. We need elite sport, we love elite sport, we need traditional sport. Traditional sport works for many people, okay? But there are also many, many people that it doesn't work for. So we're very much focused on thinking about that social sport opportunity. That's often around taking those traditional sport models and moving them a little bit left, trying to make them a bit more fun, a bit more social, less competitive and less structured. So again, this is not news. Vic Health's been in this space for quite a number of years, but it's really important for us to say that we have a range of investments or a range of opportunities for people. We can't just say traditional sport is the only answer. Our investments have seen development of new programs and growth of existing programs that have really made a big dent in that social sport space. A number of you in the room have been involved in these and certainly would have heard about them, but for us some absolute standouts will be Rock Up Netball, J-Ball with hockey, Jack Attack with bowls and Swing Fit with golf. So these initiatives are not trying to replace traditional sport. We're not saying traditional sport goes away, traditional sport continues, but we also need these in addition in order to engage more of the population. And finally, for me, this is really just to show you that our investments have taken place in a number of different streams. So we've focused very much on females, particularly in recent times. We invest nationally and state, regionally, and we also invest very locally as well. And what you see on the bottom of this slide is a whole lot of numbers there that actually show you we have really big reach. So a lot of organisations are funded by Vic Health, many projects over that period, many participants, and we're also able to see that we are being quite effective at engaging those who are less active. What I'd like to do now is introduce Matt Nicholson to share with the room a lot more of the learnings and the insights in greater depth from Vic Health's investments. So in thinking about how to actually introduce Matt, I would call Matt a friend of Vic Health, certainly. And I think when you think about your own life and the friends that you have different types of friends. You have some friends that you know quite superficially. You have some friends that know everything about you, the good and the bad. And I'd put Matt in that last category. Around Vic Health, he is involved in so many of our evaluations now. He knows what we do really well, he knows what we don't do very well, and it's fantastic to have his insights and his team as well to share with everybody today. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Kirstan, and I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to thank Vic Health for the invitation to speak today, and particularly to all of you who have turned out to hear how we can all contribute to doing sport differently. I'd like to acknowledge the team at Vic Health, the project officers and the project managers who we've been working with for the last 5 years in earnest, as well as many of the people that I see in this room that have contributed to many of the programs that Kirstan highlighted on the previous slide. And I'd also like to acknowledge my team at the Centre for Sport and Social Impact, without whom this work would not have been possible. Our centre seeks to change the way in which sport and physical activity is developed and delivered throughout Australia. And the work we do is based on the guiding principle of exploring what works, for whom, under what conditions. Sounds superficially easy, but in practice is very difficult. We are dedicated to supporting our partners to discover the kinds of information they require to best develop and deliver initiatives that will not only support their organisations, but also improve the lives of the participants that you interact with. Doing sport differently sits at the very core of what we are about, what we seek to do, which is to instigate change in order to get more people more active more often. Many years ago, I did a history degree, and so I often look back as to where we've come from. In the lead up to the 1972 election, the policy statement of what was to become the Whitlam government, in a section on quality of life, remarked, "There is no greater social problem facing Australia than the good use of expanding leisure." Unfortunately, 50 years on, this statement is as true today as it was then. Doing sport differently, I see, as part of a movement to ensure the good use of leisure is available to more Victorians and more Australians than ever before. These doing sport differently principles have been derived from work we've done with Vic Health and work we've done with Sport Australia over the last 5 years in particular, building on research with a range of partners over the last 10 years. These 6 principles that you see before you on the screen encapsulate a very large body of research and evaluation work. But our aim in distilling it into these 6 principles is to provide a simple, accessible tool to guide organisations in order to attract a larger, more diverse audience, and in particular, the ability to work with inactive people. And we want to make very clear today that it is supposed to be accessible and usable. We hope that it will be used from the CEO through to program developers to program deliverers at the coalface. Importantly, and I want you to understand this quite clearly, is that the release of the Doing Sport Differently resources today and the workshops that we'll be having after lunch are merely the start of a conversation, and hopefully that will be a long and rich conversation that we have. Now, later today in the workshop, we'll be talking to you and having you contribute to 3 of these principles in detail, but I'll now talk to you about all 6 in brief in order to give you the context. So this first principle is centred on potential participants who you might be interested in attracting to your sport or through your programs. And importantly, less active people are not, as Kirstan said, they are not homogenous. How could they be when they represent 70% of the population? There are less active people in this room. As many of you would know, if you'd participated in group activities that we've conducted in previous sessions in order to illustrate the diversity of experiences and situation of people in a room such as this. There are those amongst us who have taken a break from sport or physical activity to care for a loved one, young, aged or infirm, who have taken a break because of injury, because of stress or pressures at work, because we've simply fallen off the physical activity routine wagon, because we've moved house and can't find any places or spaces in which we feel comfortable to be active. In all likelihood, we've all been inactive for some of our lives, and in fact, many of us are less active than we'd like to be right now in this room. Now, not surprisingly, this diversity means there is no market research, unfortunately, that delivers the silver bullet for less active people. It is essential, in fact, that you engage with your target market to find out what they need, what would appeal to them, what resources they would need, what communications would attract them, and how you can make them feel comfortable in becoming active or more active. One of the ways that you might do this, and we've seen this done successfully in the research and evaluations that we've done, is to engage prospective participants in co-design. And as a practical first step, emphasise in your program what motivates them and minimise the barriers they face in any programs that you design, develop and deliver. This second principle is focused on customers and customer satisfaction. It forms part of a much broader agenda within my centre to encourage sport, recreation and leisure organisations to see participants as customers. Now, for some organisations here today and that interact with the Doing Sport Differently resources, me using the word customer might seem out of place, particularly as we talk about things such as play, leisure and fun. But our research over and over again has shown that conceptualising participants as customers is in fact an important and essential first step in a much richer engagement that you will be able to have with your participants. This is in large part because approaching them as customers will allow you to identify what we have termed touch points, the key moments that make or break their engagement with your organisation or program. In all of your organisations, you will need to work out what is most important to the customer, what these most important touch points are, the make or break moments in your program activities and engagement. You'll need to prioritise them, you'll need to attend to them in order. Practically, this means attending sessions, observing people, and yes, gathering data on their expectations and their satisfaction. This third principle is centred on the development of confidence and self-efficacy. And I've put up what might be an alternative title to this principle, which is confidence and how to develop it. It's really important to keep in mind that less active people returning to or starting sport and activity are likely to be low on confidence, unsure of their skill, their ability, their fitness. Now, in helping people who are worried about their skill or ability, you can't afford to make programs too hard. But equally so, they need to be challenging enough that they start to build their confidence, and so participants feel the satisfaction that comes from developing and building their skills. Now, in all the years of the research that we've done across multiple programs with multiple organisations, very few active people remark or note that building new skills was a motivation for them actually starting. But a significant proportion report that skill development is one of the most pleasing and satisfying outcomes, and that in turn motivates them to keep going. So importantly, we are encouraging you to consciously think about what you are offering and to whom. This will be helped if you attend to Principle 1, which is to understand your target market and ask them about what they need and the features of a program that would make them feel comfortable and supported. We are also, in the strongest terms possible, dissuading you from thinking that existing programs that work for highly skilled, highly confident, active people can simply be deployed for less active people via a change in marketing, branding, or comms. The fourth principle is self-explanatory, at least for my purpose of a brief introduction to these principles. In every piece of research or evaluation related to participation that we have ever conducted, the deliverer is central to the success of the program or session and central to a positive experience amongst those participating. We all tend to have an illusion of control in our lives, I think, particularly those of us who create programs, who allocate funding, that's the friend talking, or attempt to motivate and encourage staff. The reality of our lives is that we are often once, twice or thrice removed from the customer. Those who are closest to the customer on the front line at the sport and physical activity coalface have the control. They have the control over your product and the relationship with your customers. These deliverers are your representatives in the world. Your choice of who they are, how they are trained, and how much autonomy you give them are the most important decisions you will make in the design and delivery of your programs. This fifth principle is centred on the question, what's next? It also attends to the word of the moment, sustainability. Sustainability of your customers' physical activity and by extension the sustainability of your program. We acknowledge absolutely that come and try days and one-off events are useful in stimulating interest and engagement, but these one-off events as well as short programs of 4 to 6 weeks need to be the beginning of a sustainable long-term physical activity journey, not an end in themselves. So what this principle asks you to do is to consciously articulate the options available to a participant upon completing your program. What's next? Can they do your program again? Is there something longer, more challenging that's available to them? What other organisations are offering programs in their area? In our experience and in all the programs that we've evaluated, Participants are crying out for this information, and it's your responsibility to deliver it to them. This sixth and final principle is focused on your organisation as much as it is on your participants. The full Doing Sport Differently resources that are available online provide a range of criteria and program considerations, but I'd like to just highlight two of them for you today by way of bringing this introduction to a close. The first is strategic fit. And what we've found, and many of the organisations are here in the room today, is that without internal strategic fit, the program, however good it might be, is likely to fail because it will not receive the requisite support in order to thrive. Not just survive, but thrive within your organisation and within the marketplace. And I know that many of you who are at that program officer level, program developer level, who have been charged with delivering a new program into the marketplace and perhaps have not felt the internal support with your organisation or felt that it might not extend beyond Vic Health funding, this notion of strategic fit is really important for the long-term sustainability of the program. The second item I'd like to highlight is that of program identity. And the notion of developing a program identity draws together the threads of the previous 5 principles, each of which needs to be attended to. It requires authentic engagement with the target market, principle 1. It needs to consider participants as consumers of the product, principle 2. It needs to develop confidence, which is not only achieved through the program, but via communications and branding. And we've seen that throughout the programs that Vic Health have funded, through programs such as Coasting, the stand-up paddleboard program, that participant confidence can actually be encouraged by the communications, the branding and the marketing that they get prior to ever engaging with the program. The deliverer needs to be a living embodiment of your program philosophy. And you need to establish whether the program is standalone or whether it's part of a nested suite, either within your organisation or as a collaboration with like-minded organisations in the sector. As I noted at the beginning of this presentation, the introduction to these 6 Doing Sport Differently principles is only the start of what I hope is a larger and more interesting conversation, which we look forward to commencing in the panel that follows, as well as the workshops after lunch. Thank you again for being part of what I, at the start, called a movement to encourage more activity in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing that information with us. Just to remind everybody, on your tables, you have one of these cards here, or a pile of these cards, and they actually show you the 6 principles that Matt just talked about, so you can take those away with you to make it easy to remember. Thank you. What I'd like to do now is to invite a couple of panellists up onto the stage. Matt's going to come up first and he's going to show us how it's done in terms of getting up onto this stage and getting onto one of these stools. And if he does it okay, we'll invite to follow him Gavin from Sailing Victoria. See how he goes. And Sabrin as well from Golf Australia. Thank you. Okay, thanks to the 3 of you for doing so. And it's great to see on Slido, everyone can see there's a whole lot of questions in there already, which is fantastic, and there's people have been voting for questions as well, liking questions, so we can know which are the more popular questions, make sure we have time to ask those. So there's still time, so as we're having this conversation now, please jump in there and add some questions if you would like to do so. What I'd like to do, I guess I'll ask first of all, Sabrin, if you can tell us a little bit about golf and your experience around golf and its evolution. To me, golf stands out as a sport that is steeped in tradition and etiquette, and I'm interested to know how it's changed and how well that's gone.
Perfect. So my name is Sabrin Nyawela, and I am the project lead for Freestyle Golf, which is golf in non-traditional spaces. So it's a teen program for 12 to 17-year-olds. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous at the moment. I'm going to shake it out. But freestyle golf really is off a golf course. We have one of the biggest challenges that we've had is breaking down the barrier of perception. So it's not a surprise to me, at least at a grassroots level, that golf is perceived as elitist for rich old men who probably are retired or of some of the sort. And so at the moment with freestyle golf, it's been really challenging to really break down that preconceived notion or idea. And also with that, we did an inclusion research project before I started. So I started in Feb this year, and some of the perceptions that people had of golf back in their home country really dictated their experiences of golf here in Australia and how exclusive that it could really be. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you.
No worries.
Maybe, Gavin, if we can throw to you and talk about sailing. Again, we just talked about maybe rich old men. Can you tell us a bit about sailing and how sailing sort of shifted its approach to engage people who would be less active?
You've strategically chosen two sports that lend themselves to rich old men. Yeah. As a sport like golf, we acknowledged that this was a barrier and a perception probably a decade ago, and we've been working for the last 10 years with the support of Vic Health around, I guess, changing the focus and the culture in our clubs to be more demand-focused rather than supply-focused, and through that creating a number of different programs, I guess, that align or help break down those perceived barriers around accessibility, time, cost, and reach. So this has been a journey for us, and we have now, interestingly enough, we have a suite of programs now that we believe, and we keep growing them, address a lot of different demographics out there and address the barriers that they feel to getting involved in a sport, or what we're actually trying to call a recreation now rather than a sport.
Yep. Fantastic, thank you. There's a question on Slido that 15 people have liked. It's our most liked question, so I'm going to ask that one next. And maybe all three of you can have a chance to answer this, and it's okay if your answers are different from each other. So and maybe, Matt, you can answer it last. So maybe, Sabrin, first of all, can you tell us which is better? Is it quantity or quality? So should we be aiming to maximise the number of people through a program or the quality of the participants' experience?
I feel like it would be the quality of the experience. Participants need to have a good program to actually go out and use word of mouth and tell friends and participants. So with freestyle golf, our curriculum, it's a games-based approach. So all of the activities have 5 different modification levels for beginners up to elite participants. And with that, we've seen phenomenal learnings and great success from participants who have never had the experience of golf but have come across, realised that they've enjoyed the games-based approach and not a 9-hole course sort of setting. And then they've gone and told friends and family about it, that they actually really enjoyed it and that they've broken down sort of that perception issue, and yeah.
All right, thank you. Gavin, your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, definitely quality. Without a quality program, you're not going to get the quantity. So first and foremost, a really quality program that addresses the requirements of that age group or that demographic, which will then lead to more clubs coming on board, which then leads into actually a quantity of people coming through.
Okay. Matt, are you going to copy their answers, or are you going to throw something different in?
That sounds like a question to Vic Health from the people that you fund in the room, which was lovely of you to do it anonymously through the Slido app. I think we as the team that have been working on the evaluation for all these years, and I think the team within Vic Health, it has been quite a long journey, and we are sharing your pain about how difficult it is to start a program, to do the co-design work, to find out what people want, and to constantly iterate the program, and so that it is one of quality rather than chasing quantity from the very beginning. And I hope that nothing I've said in those principles would dissuade you away from doing the hard work and developing a quality program that over time you can build and scale to get the numbers. But I think the answer is obvious, but I think it was directed at you more than it was at us.
So I think from a Vic Health point of view as well, we think both are important and neither extreme is the right. options. So we have a lot of people having a poor experience is not good because it's going to be very short-lived. We have very, very few people having a great experience is not good either. So we really need to make sure that we first of all establish programs that are going to give people good experiences. And when people have good experiences, that will spread. So more people having more good experiences, I think, is the safest way to answer.
Yeah, so I think I'll follow up and build on what I said about the one-off experiences, the come and try, the one-off events, and how so they're a good opportunity to build numbers, but I think that's looking at it the wrong way. They're a good opportunity to create awareness and become a stimulus or a catalyst for further engagement with your organisation. And so the pathway that you have needs to be very clearly developed and articulated. So if you want to go for numbers, and so they're not mutually exclusive, I understand, but if you want to go for numbers with the kind of come and try opportunities, that's fine, as long as there's something else. And what we've been arguing for the last 5 years is that offering something to a large cohort as a one-off event can actually be worse for less active people. Because having started and having the courage, and I think we've spoken to many of you in this room about that notion of the less active person, particularly a less active female who might sit in the car of a car park and drive home again, or have the flyer on the fridge for 6 months before, getting the courage up to attend. Once that happens, there needs to be a clear pathway for them to progress. You cannot afford to have just the one-off event or the 4 weeks and then wave goodbye, because that has the potential to actually be more problematic. That they have an experience and then they're again turned off sport and physical activity for a longer period of time. So let's do both. Let's get the quality and the quantity, but let's have it clearly articulated what that pathway is.
Could I just add to that?
Sure.
It's about a quality program that's going to get taken up by all of your clubs. So if you've got a quality program that's addressing your club's needs, which and I would suggest in every club and every sport is around membership and around participation, then if every club in your sport, so sailing, we've got 92 clubs in Victoria, if they all take that program up, then we get the quantity through a quality program.
Yep. All right, that's great. Thank you, the three of you, for that. The next question I'll ask you is a bit more about inclusion. When we think about gender, we often or have traditionally thought about gender in a binary sense. That people are male or they are female, and that is how things are. So there's a question from the audience around what steps can clubs take to think beyond that binary way of viewing gender? Do you have any experiences to offer there around that form of inclusion?
Sorry, could you just repeat that because we were changing mics?
No problem. So I guess we're just saying traditionally we've thought about gender in a binary sense, that people are male or female, and that is how it is. And we know in a modern world that it's not always that clear cut. So are you aware at the club level, I guess, of any approaches that could be taken to be more inclusive?
Just at Golf Australia, we've got the Clubs and Facilities Action Plan. So we understand that having a 5-week program isn't enough. It needs to be sustainable. And so really we've got these documents and census data for clubs and facilities to be more inclusive. They've reached out and they've said they've wanted to, they just don't know how. And so we really are giving them the resources to take necessary steps. And for golf is just a sport that anybody can play. You can have the same tees, you can go with family, friends, and anybody of any gender. And so I feel like once those quick wins are done, it's pretty much stock standard after that. Just clubs and facilities including people and not having set times for women or men or whatever gender binary. And yeah, sorry.
We're a gender-neutral sport. However, in saying that, our female membership is roughly at around 34%. We have very strong female participation numbers in the younger age groups, but then they drop out in the middle age groups and then come back later on. We have a number of programs through the She Sales, which is our new national brand, which we're focused on creating opportunities for ladies to participate into the sport, but more importantly, actually leadership opportunities, which has become really important. And we notice that we've got not enough females as leaders within our sport, but Sailing, there's mixed boats, you can have a combination across all the different classes that we have. So we don't sort of see it as a binary thing necessarily. It's just a sport that should be inclusive of everybody.
All right. Thank you. There's another question for Vic Health in here, very clearly marked for Vic Health. Next one. So I guess it's carrying on from the previous question. It's talking about if experience is paramount, should future funding then solely be related to qualitative assessment, not quantitative? So again, I think we've probably started thinking about that as well in terms of the question, the way that I responded just before as well. I think Vic Health, when we have really critical conversations around the way we fund sports and the way we partner with sports and sporting organisations, we are quite aware that we do drive numbers. And a lot of the KPIs that we have created as an organisation are about numbers of people whose health's changed or number of participants. So we know that's quite limiting at times, and we are trying to be much more considered around how we can capture both the quality of the experience, so those subjective elements, but numbers as well, because as I said before, we can't just have great quality experiences for very few people. So I think that probably covers that one. The next question I'll ask is about program deliverers. So what measures did you take to ensure program deliverers on the ground were adaptable and educated about the program goals? So Matt's told us that program deliverers is one of the principles. They are so paramount to effectiveness. But in either of the two sports we're talking about now, I guess, have you done anything particular to make that work?
Certainly. We find when we roll out new programs, the first, stage is actually face-to-face. We're working directly with the deliverers and, inducting them into the program and what the outcomes were and how important they are to the success of the program. Then the next stage is that we create online induction modules, and we have that, so that then becomes actually, compulsory for all our deliverers to do those online modules before they can actually deliver our program, and that goes through all of the barriers and the expectations and all of the goals of the program. And then, of course, we spend our time running around our clubs and viewing and quality controlling the programs and giving them feedback on how they did and didn't do and what could be done better.
Thanks. We've got our community instructor module. So after that, then we do a couple of face-to-face training days. And then from there, it's really regional development officers will actually go out and see how these deliverers go and really providing feedback as well. Yeah.
Yep. Is it just about training? Like, can you, to get the right deliverer, is it just about giving them the good online learning? Is it?
Well, you've got to get the right person first.
Yep. So do you have to be prepared to have some of those uncomfortable conversations?
Especially because we're a sport that's still full of old men that think they should be teaching and they don't know how to teach in a manner that's acceptable anymore. So we have to have a number of conversations with them about how they've actually got to give up and pass the baton on.
So I might follow up on what I said for one of in a number of the slides. You've asked the question about, is it training? I think at the core of the deliverers are the most important part of your program is being able to communicate a shared understanding of the value and the philosophy of the program. We've found time and time again that those steps of removal from you as the program creator to the person who's delivering, that chain of command, or however you want to think about it, once it gets down to the person who's delivering, if they understand and share the philosophy of the program, then the chances of it being delivered well are much higher than any other factor. I'm not saying training's not important. I'm not saying induction and all of the quality control measures. But if the deliverers understand the philosophy of the program, that understand the co-design process, the customers, and what their needs were, and then why you went about designing and delivering it in the way that you did, that will be the single most effective way of ensuring that the program actually gets delivered as you intended it to. So what we've seen across the number of programs that we've evaluated, both the Vic Health and Sport Australia, particularly through the YPP, the Youth Participation Project, where we went to 100 secondary schools across Australia that had programs delivered by 8 NSOs. And what you found there was deliverers delivering a program that looked nothing like the program that had been delivered at head office, because that chain of command and devolving the responsibility to a third party or a set of deliverers that no one had ever briefed about the philosophy of the program led to, and we talk about, in our team, we talk about implementation fidelity. To what extent was the program delivered as you intended it to? And implementation fidelity is much higher if the deliverer understands the philosophy and value of the program. So you have a shared understanding of what the program's about. That's what I would be encouraging people with their deliverers, to know that they are part of the team and part of the program.
I'd also add, it's going back to getting the right deliverer, and that depends on the demographic and the type of program that you're delivering. So with our Out There Sailing program, which is aimed obviously 12 to 17-year-olds, we only have instructors or deliverers that are sort of in their early 20s or even 19, late teenage years, and so therefore they can relate, and in fact they're having as much fun as the participants, which then rubs off and then gives us that sustainability.
So adding to that, who should recruit the deliverers? So there's a question on here that's actually asking, if it is that important that we get the right people, should it be done at the SSA, RSA level, that they recruit all the deliverers, or should we let it be several steps removed and allow clubs to recruit their own deliverers?
So my answer is going to just simply replicate what I said. I don't actually think it matters at the level if there's a shared philosophy throughout the organisation. So if the SSA wants to recruit them, that's fine, as long as there's a mechanism and they're not too many steps removed. If the program deliverer at the coalface is charged with recruiting deliverers, then that's fine, as long as they are able to communicate the philosophy of the program. I think who recruits and where they recruit from is less important than having a consistent message throughout your organisation about the philosophy, the purpose, and why you've developed this program. That is in essence. And in far too many organisations that we work with, only one person or one small part of the organisation is aware of the program, what it's been designed for, and why it's being delivered. That has to be shared across the organisation.
All right, great, thank you. There's a question here about volunteers. So we're talking about deliverers and we're talking about volunteers now. So many sporting clubs are already struggling for volunteers in terms of actually getting volunteer numbers. Maybe Sabrin and Gavin, how did you get your clubs on board with doing more? So thinking particularly about traditional sports and committees and all the things that we're saying need to be done to make it happen well.
I'll start then. Yeah, great question. I guess it's a long journey, and it goes back to having some data and having some, if you have got some successful case studies that you can go out, finding those early adopters, those clubs that you already have a really strong relationship with and that you know are open to new ideas and are open to trialling new ideas, working with them, ensuring that they're successful in the first stage of the program, and then creating case studies, taking those out to the other clubs and explaining how successful it's been, then linking those early adopter clubs with the next clubs, getting them to talk to each other, and actually as a sporting organisation stepping out of that conversation so that they then convince each other, and then through that they will then find the volunteers and they'll then make it happen.
Just through freestyle golf, I guess the only volunteers that we've worked with are through RecLink Australia. So with them, we provided them with the equipment, with the instructor training, and really just supervising or helping them out where need be. So if they need to build a relationship with Clubland, then Golf Australia can help with that. But with that, we just let them really take charge and take control.
So who are they?
RecLink Australia?
No, who are the volunteers that have been recruited by RecLink?
So it's RecLink Australia, so there's a few of them, and then they've got some local people out in like Cranbourne area and Dandenong area that have asked Reckling to help out, and so they're just naturally passionate about sport. So they've done basketball and soccer programs, but then when Reckling approaches them and offers them a different sport, they're usually passionate and willing to give it a shot, and yeah.
Okay, thank you. You think some of those questions are tough? We've got a tough one now. This one's about sustainability of programs. And so I guess Vic Health is a major funder of these programs. We fund things short term, and we always ask for sustainability. Not an easy thing to do. It's okay to ask for it. It's very hard to actually achieve it. So do any of the three of you have tips for people in the room around how you can achieve sustainability when the funding is short term?
It's getting buy-in first and foremost from your clubs and making sure that they understand that it is a worthwhile program and a program that's going to help them achieve their goals, which is increased participation and in yacht clubs, certainly increased membership. Our programs then tend to, we've got a range of them. Some of them are the clubs will charge for them. Others are free that they offer, and they're just fully supported by resources that we as Australian Sailing will put together and offer to them to then utilise to keep delivering that program. But I really believe it's, if you take the financial component out of it, and everyone will have different strategies around a financial model that's sustainable, but it's actually about them really having ownership of these strategies and showing that they're going to achieve their goals. And if they're getting those goals, and through our club conferences and through our road shows and through our face-to-face meetings and through getting them talking to each other, they're spreading the word that this program has increased membership, it's increased participation, it just becomes sustainable.
Providing flexible membership options, so really letting people have a look at the experience of, say, freestyle golf, and then at Clubland providing opportunities for family packages or anything of the sort. So it increases participation, it increases the membership level, but it's at an equitable rate.
Okay, can I just ask one sort of final question? When you're talking about memberships, have we got the membership structures of clubs right? Or do we need to think about having more flexible memberships that really support those who are participating more socially?
We definitely have to have flexible memberships.
Right.
And that's one of the big things that, changing the culture and the understanding in our clubs over the last decade around being demand driven, and that part of that is flexible memberships. And that's why we have the Sail Pass now, which is a day membership where they can buy a certain number or they get given them free. They become a full member of the club for that day. It addresses all of our governance issues. So it's an entree into the sport. The clubs have a range of different memberships now to absolutely ensure that there is a membership category that will suit every person or nearly every person that's looking to get involved in sailing.
Great.
I'll use this opportunity to link membership, volunteers, a range of other questions I think you've asked. There is absolutely nothing wrong with Victoria and Australia developing a very strong user pays system that sits outside community sporting clubs and organisations. The community sport clubs will always have a role to play. They're evolving, they're changing, as are SSAs and NSOs. I hope that doing sport differently is, as I said, part of a movement that creates alternative and multiple ways of people engaging with sport. We cannot see the community sport club and the traditional membership structure as the foundation of a system to get less active people involved. It has a role to play, it will contribute, but equally so, our researchers show that if we have strong co-design programs, you're engaged with prospective participants, you treat them as customers, then there is a preparedness to pay, and that we could create a viable user pays model of high quality programs that attend to perhaps not individual needs, but certainly the needs of the multiple groups of less active in our community. that kind of community club thinking is really back in the 50s and 60s. The kind of, I reference Whitlam, so now I'm going to go even further and reference the Menzies governments of the 50s and 60s that believed that all people needed was a pair of running shoes, and the whole of our society would be active. We need multiple options. We can't get caught in this one size fits all. And my hope is that doing sport differently, contributes to that long-term change in the Australian sports system.
Could I just add to that very briefly? Having a flexible membership option that allows someone to try the sport over a period of time actually does then lead, if you have a good pathway, into full membership within the traditional membership structure. And the sale pass is showing us, the data is showing us that 25 to 45% of people that utilise that flexible membership, that sale pass, actually become a member of a club in a traditional sense. And we've got some of our clubs that 40% of all their new membership come through that sale pass, that flexible entree into the sport. So they can cohabit, but you definitely need to have that flexible option to get them involved in the beginning.
Fantastic, thank you. We need to wrap this up, but can I just ask each of you in 30 seconds or so to just tell us what is the one standout thing that you know now that you wish you knew at the start of this journey around doing sport differently?
I wish that I knew how to engage all of the people in the room better with engaging with data about customers. We went through a long journey with Vic Health about doing the evaluations and research in a particular way. And I've said to Kirstan and said to others, in the first year of the evaluation, we delivered 900 pages worth of reports. Hopefully the funded organisations in the room are now the beneficiaries of what was a change from that model into the dashboard reporting system. And I wish we had started quicker on providing all of these organisations in the room with the data that they can actually make their own decisions in close enough to real time as possible. Because we need to see these participants, I've gone way over 30 seconds, these participants and customers in the same way that Woolworths and Qantas, offer loyalty cards and loyalty programs to collect consumer data. The sport industry of Australia needs to understand consumer data and consumer insights far better than it does. We are well behind. We're still the kind of kitchen table governance of consumer data. I wish that we had made quicker strides on that journey. We're now doing well, but let's take that and actually accelerate ahead far quicker than we have in the previous 5 years. Sorry, I've given you time.
That's perfect. And data was going to be one of my points, and I sort of agree with that. I guess the other thing is around the importance of co-design. 10 years ago when we started the journey around changing the culture in our clubs and their thinking, I guess we were very much a top-down type organisation, and our programs that we're developing now are very much bottom-up. And I think that's therefore getting our clubs on board a lot easier, and whereas I would suggest in the longer term going to see much better results.
Thank you.
I wish I knew more about the fixed mindsets of traditional people at Clubland and how to really build and keep it sustainable for participants that have had a great experience but need to move to the next step, and really how to break that down.
Fantastic. Sabrin and Gavin, can I say thank you so much to both of you for sharing your personal reflections and the experiences of your sports so generously with all the other sports in the room. I think it's fantastic that we share and try to support each other to get better at this area of work is great. And Matt, you've shared your team's thoughts around these evaluations, which is basically representing so many of us in the room already, so a massive thank you to you as well. So thank you to all three of the panellists for sharing their thoughts with us today. So we're pretty much right on time for our break for lunch. So we want to say thank you to all those people who've been on live stream and who've stuck with us right through to 12 o'clock. Chance now for all of us in the room, you can actually get up out of your chairs, you can head out, there'll be food out there in that foyer area and chance to mingle. We'll be back in here at 12:40, ready to start the afternoon. So thank you.
We've come for footy.
Saints Play is a program developed for 5 to 13-year-old children to come down and try football for the first time. Most of the kids that come down are on the autism spectrum or have got ADHD and other learning difficulties.
I didn't think AFL would be good at all for Sage, but we saw the free trial day and I just thought, well, we may as well give it a go. Lo and behold, she loved it.
One of the great participants we've had has been Sage. We visited her school with a 4-week intro to football program at her school. And then, we found out that she's transitioned down to Beaumaris Auskick, one of the Auskicks we're working with. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
My name is George Halkias and I deliver special projects for Melbourne City Football Club, City in the Community. Walking football is essentially a slower version of the world game, football, soccer, call it what you will, and it's an activity designed to get seniors active, socialising and improving their health. So obviously there's no running, so as the name suggests, it's all about walking. We don't want the ball above hip height, obviously tackling's to a minimum and giving players some time on the ball, so we adapt the rules accordingly and use common sense, I guess, to make it safe for the individuals. So City in the Community partners community organisations and local governments to deliver walking football, as well as some football clubs.
Why I got involved was mainly my husband. My husband's an ex-soccer player and referee, and he said, let's come along and see what it's like. I think the social element is that for our age, there's not a lot of team sports. You can play tennis, or you might have a golfing circle, but this one, the circle is much broader.
I absolutely love it. I love the warm-up exercises, I love the competitive nature of the game. I used to play soccer when I was young, and I haven't kicked a soccer ball for over 50 years, so I really enjoy it now I'm playing.
Like any community program and any community sport program, it's important to demonstrate its effectiveness and its impact. The impact on health, the impact on well-being, the impact socially. So a range of different evaluations, and we're looking to increase the research that we do into the program so we can demonstrate A, that the participants are getting maximum benefit, that they feel safe, there's no risk to them, and hopefully that validates what we're doing and helps the growth of the program. For us, we've done a lot of work with young people generally, but in recent times this program has been inspiring and demonstrated the impact of sport. So for us to work in this space is pretty special. So I encourage other associations, other sports, other groups to be innovative, look at target groups, look at groups who aren't getting physically active, think of the barriers and try and address them. I think through the Innovation Grant we've demonstrated that it's not an easy task, but through a bit of experimentation, a bit of collaboration, a bit of consultation, you can make things happen.